Looking to do less of this in Nioh 2 and more of this? Well, too bad, the game's impossible. Best to give up now. Thanks for watching, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Wait, no please, wait! That was a joke. I mean, it's not completely a joke. Nioh 2 is really hard, but hey, don't worry because we'll get through this together. Here are 10-ish essential tips to survive Nioh 2. Number 1.
Key pulse or die.
I don't mean to make this sound dramatic, but this is seriously the most important skill that you need to learn if you plan on playing Nioh 2. Nioh 2's combat is built to allow you to play fast and aggressive, but the only way to do that is to also use frequent key pulses to ensure that your stamina supply can keep up with your actions. A key pulse is when you tap R1 shortly after an attack to refill the amount of ki that you just spent. Watch your ki bar and notice how the bar starts to fill back up after you do a combo. Basically, as soon as you press R1, you'll gain that much ki back. So you want to try to wait till the last second to regain as much ki as you can. Note that there are several skills that you can upgrade to make key pulses easier or more effective. The ones that allow you to do key pulses just by dodging are nearly essential, while the ones that regain more ki when you switch stances instead of using a standard key pulse are also fantastic for more advanced players. Number 2, match your stats to your weapons. Gear is much more important than stats in Nioh 2, but you should still focus on matching your stats to whatever weapons you decide to main. If you decide to main 2 weapons, it would be best to try and pick 2 weapons that synergize well together. For example, both the dual swords and the dual hatchets scale with skill, making them a great pair since you can focus on one stat and improve the scalable damage of both weapons. You also don't have to focus on 2 weapons. For my playthrough, I focused entirely on the Switchglaive, which scaled with magic, and balanced it out by using magic as my secondary weapon. Number 3, don't neglect your other stats. Even if you decide to focus primarily on 2 or 3 stats, keep an eye out on the stat requirements on the pieces of armor that you pick up. You can put on pretty much any armor in Nioh 2 and still get the defensive rating, but if you don't meet the stat requirements of the armor, you'll be missing out on powerful modifiers that can sometimes be even more important than its actual defense. So, buff your secondary stats to meet the requirements of your equipment, while also dumping some points into Constitution and Courage to make sure that you're not getting one-shotted by everything, or, just tired out from a few swings of your weapon. Since gear is more important than stats, it is especially important to spread those points out a bit rather than just quickly reach the soft cap of your main stat like you would in other Souls-like games. Number 4, use your prestige points. Prestige points can be easy to forget about, but over time the bonuses that they give are substantial. You get prestige points whenever you get a new title, which can happen fairly frequently. So make sure to always go to the titles portion of the menu whenever there's an exclamation point, indicating that you have points to set. Also remember that there are 2 different types of prestige points, Agyo and Ungyo, so make sure you spend both of them. Number 5, burst counters. You gotta use them. In other Souls-like games, parries are kind of an optional thing that can make certain fights easier if you get the timing down, but again, they're optional. Burst counters are almost required in Nioh 2 because your opportunities to attack and deal significant damage are so minimal if you don't use them. Note that each Guardian Spirit type gives you a different burst counter. Brute burst counters are slow to start but have armor and can be used as a preemptive attack that does decent damage to both ki and health, even if it doesn't counter a red aura attack. The Pharaoh burst counter is a dash that can double as a quick escape if you run out of ki, while also being exceptionally good at countering red aura dash attacks, and the Phantom burst counter is the most traditional of the 3, acting solely as a counter, or a block if your timing is slightly off. Number 6, know your enemies. This comes with experience, but it's really important to keep mental notes of certain tendencies and vulnerabilities of each enemy. Slimes can be blown up with fire or elemental damage, but if you don't have any elemental magic, simply wait for them to attack you, then strike when they shrink back and expose their nucleus. Most enemies can be stunned with a shot to the head, making the Enki Soul Core ability especially useful against tall enemies with big heads. But perhaps the most important thing to know is when certain enemies like to use their red aura attacks. Most human enemies will use them out of desperation when they're low on life. Karasu Tengus like to use this stabbing one after whiffing on a spin kick, and the one-eyed Oni will look to do a drop kick if you're out of range of its regular attacks. If you know when the attacks are coming, timing a burst counter becomes much easier. Number 7, use your ranged weapons. This should go without saying, but your bows, rifles, and hand cannons are your best friends when it comes to thinning out the hordes of enemies that lie await in an area. The easiest way to die in Nioh 2 is to get overwhelmed by multiple enemies, so always make sure to take it slow and look for headshots before you trigger the aggro of any enemies. Number 8. What to do with loot. Buckle in, boys and girls, because this one's gonna be a lengthy one. You get so much loot in Nioh 2 that it can be absolutely overwhelming. Like a pile of dirty laundry that you let get so big that at this point you just don't want to deal with it. But you have to, Mitchell! Wash your f***ing clothes, you disgusting person! Anyway, loot. Everyone's gonna have their own thoughts on how to deal with it, but here's my general recommendation. While you're in a level, unless you're really struggling with your gear being underleveled, ignore the loot you pick up, unless you're using it to feed its offerings for divine rice or elixirs. Otherwise, wait till you get through the level and are back in the map screen to do all of your loot management. There, you do a deep dive and do everything that you need, including equip the strongest gear you have, lock down items that you don't want to throw away because they have rare modifiers or are part of a rare set, and also lock down items that are high level but aren't items that you particularly want to use, like a weapon that's of a type that you aren't using, or a piece of armor that makes you too heavy. Then sell or dismantle the rest, depending on what you need more of, money or crafting parts. Then take a look at your resulting equipment. Did you lock down anything that's a higher level than the equipment you're currently using? Well, then take a trip to the blacksmith and see if you can feed it into something you're using via soul match to raise its level. Now, is there anything you have equipped that is at a substantially lower level than the rest of your gear? Try to forge something new to replace it. Are you happy with the modifiers of your weapons and armor? If not, do some rerolls by tempering your equipment. This is a lot, and it can take a while, but if you do all of this work now, you'll be able to keep your actual playtime relatively menu-free, which is absolutely worth the effort. Number 9, weaknesses and resistances. Nioh 2 is not very good at communicating when an enemy is weak to an element, but most enemies are weak or resistant to one or more element. The best way to find this out is by heading to the yokai illustration section of your hut and pressing R2 to view the stats of a particular enemy. Some weaknesses are obvious, like of course a flaming wheel yokai would be weak to water. But others, like the Yoki's weakness to paralysis, are a little more illuminating, and can definitely affect how you approach battle against them. Number 10, everything else. God, there are so many tips to give in Nioh 2, I could be here all day. So let's just go rapid fire through the others. Use the options button to learn what different modifiers do while in the menus, especially when you're tempering your equipment. Weapons get stronger the more you use them, that's what the familiarity bar is for. So don't just go by damage numbers to determine a weapon's strength. A weapon with 0 familiarity may be weaker than one that has familiarity maxed out, but consider how much stronger a weapon would be if it got its own familiarity maxed out. If you purchase these green skills on a skill tree, you'll need to equip them in the skill customization menu. Highlight the skill you want to improve, then press square to open the custom active skill settings. Killing revenants is a solid way to farm rare gear, just make sure you're up to the task. They also drop Choco Cups, which can be used to summon benevolent spirits into your game for some help. On the flip side of that, make sure to drop Righteous Jasper in tough areas to help out other players. Doing so will reward you with glory, more Righteous Jaspers, and more Choco Cups. And speaking of glory, don't forget to spend your glory. Go to the Hidden Tea House to spend it on rare consumables, crafting parts, randomly generated high-level equipment, or, if you prefer, transformations. If at any point you hate your build, you can use a Book of Reincarnation to respec your stats or a Zen Manual to respec your prestige points. Both can be bought from the Hidden Tea House with some glory. Pay attention to how heavy your gear makes you. There are 3 levels of equip load. Well, technically there are 4, but trust me, you don't want to be in the red when it comes to equipment. Blue is the lowest and will give you the best evades at the substantial cost of defense. Green is the ideal with a healthy balance of mobility and survivability, and yellow is what you should strive for if you're looking for a more tanky build. Always look up. Always. God, there's so much more, but hopefully these tips help you manage the intense difficulty that Nioh 2 offers. If it did, well hey, that's great. If there's anything I missed, drop a tip in the comments. Thanks for watching, and for more Nioh 2, you can check out my review along with the first minutes of the game. And for everything else, keep it here on IGN.